Welcome to Cyclins, the place where psychology meets real life, where every insight has the power to transform the way you think, connect, and grow. Today we're diving deep into the timeless wisdom of Dale Carnegie, unraveling the hidden psychological secrets behind why some people remain everyone's favorite while others fade into the background. This isn't about tricks or fake charm. It's about understanding how the human mind craves connection, respect, and genuine care. So, if you've ever wondered what makes someone unforgettable in friendships, at work, or in life itself, stay with me. Because what you're about to learn will change the way you see relationships forever. You might think that being someone's favorite is about flashy charisma or saying exactly what they want to hear, but in fact the secret lies deeper in how our brains process social connection. At its core, Carnegie's timeless message, to stay a favorite, genuinely care, connects with a fundamental human need, to feel seen and valued. When someone leans in and truly notices us, pay attention to small details in our lives, it triggers a quiet release of oxytocin in our brains, the so-called bonding hormone. Without chemistry, no persuasive technique will endure. So when you ask someone how their day went, and then listen, really listen, you're doing more than politeness, you're activating human connection. And that sense of connection builds trust, and trust builds preference. Think of a manager who remembers that you like Earl Grey but work with black tea because there's no other option. One day he drops off a cup of Earl that he cleverly swapped from his own stash. It's not the tea you remember, it's the gesture. That's what Carnegie pointed to. Small acknowledgments can spark disproportionately big affection. Your brain earns a soft spot for the giver, not because of the tea, but because of being known. Once we feel known and appreciated, we open up. Self-disclosure in psychological terms means revealing something personal, but safely, not oversharing. In real life, you've likely seen two people bond over a shared minor vulnerability, maybe complaining about a flaky Wi-Fi connection or joking about how awful Mondays feel. When someone mirrors that tiny human truth, you feel understood, and the favorite status quietly drapes over them. Carnegie's "be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires" is psychologically equivalent to saying, "I'm attuned to your inner world." That subtle alignment smooths friction and nudges you toward favor. When conflicts arise, the tendency to argue, to defend, to correct is a trap. Carnegie advised resisting the urge to point out someone's mistakes directly. Psychologically, that taps into the idea of ego preservation. We humans are wired to protect our self-image. A gentle question like, "I may be wrong, but what do you think about?" allows someone to soften rather than dig in. In a workplace, a team leader might say, "I could be missing something, help me understand your idea," instead of bluntly saying, "That's not how we should do it." This kind of framing lets people save face and keeps them liking you, or, better yet, staying a found favorite. As trust grows, another psychological mechanism kicks in: reciprocity. If someone treats us kindly without expecting anything, our natural wiring wants to return the favor. Carnegie leaned into this. A genuine compliment, a bit of recognition liberally given, encourages a tension-free bond. In everyday life, when a friend notices you've accomplished a small but meaningful goal, like finishing a challenging task, and says, "That's awesome, you're really on a roll," that acknowledgement isn't just nice, your brain registers that positive reinforcement as personal affinity and tends to mirror it. But intense familiarity can erode favor just as gently as trust builds it. There's psychological sensory adaptation. When someone showers you with praise day after day, it might become white noise. Carnegie subtly warns against flattery that lacks sincerity. If every email starts with "you're the best," it loses meaning. Instead, vary your appreciation. Occasionally zero in on a specific behavior or quality like, "I really admire how you stayed calm in that tough meeting today." Specificity realigns your attention, renews value, and revives the bond. Real relationships are rarely linear, and setbacks can shake favor if not navigated with care. Imagine a disagreement with a close friend that leaves the air heavy. In that moment, Carnegie's emphasis on admitting one's mistakes, not boasting, speaks to a critical psychological truth. Humility diffuses tension. When you say, "I realize I sounded dismissive earlier and I'm sorry," it disarms defensiveness and opens space. That apology catalyzes repair, and favors rebound stronger than before. This transition from rupture to reaffirmation relies on another psychological dynamic: confirmation bias. Once we like someone, we're inclined to interpret their actions favorably. Carnegie capitalized on that. Subtle reminders of a person's good qualities can reinforce the privilege of being a favorite. In practice, after a misunderstanding, reaching out with a light message, Still grateful for your advice earlier. You have such a way of cutting through the noise. Helps the other person interpret your earlier misstep as an anomaly, not a character flaw. For lasting preference, consistent reliability matters at least as much as emotional warmth. Our brains look for patterns. Does this person show up when they say they will? Do they follow through on their words? Carnegie's insistence on being dependable is psychologically rooted in our need for security in relationships. Think about someone who always returns your calls or arrives on time. That reliability becomes part of why you prefer them. Not because they're flamboyant, but because they're solid. Confidence without arrogance is another psychological balancing act. Carnegie advocated showing belief in others, highlighting their strengths. That shifts the spotlight, and as a rule of reciprocity, people tend to see the lender of that light as worthy of affection. Picture a teacher who, when a student fumbles an answer, gently says, "That was close. You've got the right idea," rather than harshly correcting. The student keeps trying, stays motivated, and remains fond of that teacher. Psychologically, by lifting others, you become tethered to their esteem. There's also the importance of timing. Timing isn't dramatic, it's about cognitive economy. If someone is stressed or distracted, no amount of charm works. Carnegie's principle to consider the other person's mood first echoes the idea that our brains must have spare attentional resources to process connection. So if your colleague looks overwhelmed, a compliment about their work later, when they're receptive, means infinitely more than while they're swamped. As relationships unfold over time, subtle self-promotion without overshadowing is key. Carnegie warned against talking too much about one's own achievements. Psychologically, spotlight hogging can trigger social comparison and envy in listeners, pushing them away. Instead, let your actions speak softly. Let others testify to your strengths. In a team setting, if you quietly contribute and others notice and highlight you, that word-of-mouth admiration carries deeper trust than your own bragging. Over time, staying a favorite becomes less about overt charm and more about being emotionally present, respectful, and modest. When someone is emotionally active, tuned into others, offering validation, stepping back when appropriate, and staying dependable, they inhabit a psychological sweet spot where others feel safe, respected, and uplifted. These aren't flashy moves, but everyday habits that build enduring favor. In genuine social bonds, there's a feedback loop. When someone treats you well, your brain favors them. That preference invites more goodwill, which deepens connection. Carnegie's ideas tap into that loop by teaching us not to force affection, but cultivate it through attention, empathy, humility, reliability, and timing. And so when you wonder how to be someone's favorite, remember, don't aim to dazzle, aim to care. Care enough to see them, not just nod while thinking about your own point. Care enough to remind them of their value, be present in small ways, admit your missteps, and remain reliably kind. That slow weave of authenticity is what keeps you in someone's heart. In the end, being a favorite isn't a performance, it's a practice of humanity. And there you have it, Carnegie's wisdom, backed by powerful psychology, proving that being someone's favorite isn't about impressing people with words, but about leaving a lasting mark through empathy, respect, and authenticity. The world is full of noise, but the ones who listen deeply, who lift others without seeking the spotlight, who stay humble yet reliable, those are the people hearts never forget. So take these lessons, apply them to your life, and watch how connections transform around you. Because when you care in ways that others can feel, you don't just become someone they like. You become someone they never want to lose.